The night was cold and restless in New York City when the helicopters began circling above the massive white mansion on the edge of the Hudson. Flashing lights painted the marble walls in blue and red as the crowd of journalists pressed against the iron gates. Everyone wanted a glimpse of the billionaire tech tycoon, Leonard Gray, whose only son, 8-year-old Samuel, had been lying in a hospital bed for almost a year, breathing, but barely alive. The child who once laughed louder than the seagulls over the bay had not opened his eyes in 11 long months. Every cure had failed, every doctor had walked away defeated, and every hope had withered under the glare of machines that beeped without mercy. Inside the mansion, Leonard stood beside the boy's bed, his face hollow and his eyes swollen with exhaustion. Once hailed as a genius who built an empire from nothing, he now looked like a man crumbling from the inside. 1,000 doctors, he whispered bitterly, and not one could save my boy. He turned toward the window, where the city lights looked like faraway stars. His wife had left months ago, unable to bear the sight of their dying child. All that remained was silence, nurses, and the faint hum of wealth that couldn't fix what mattered most. At the same hour, in a small apartment 2 miles away, a delivery driver named Ethan Blake pulled off his worn-out cap and sighed as he tucked his 6-year-old daughter, Lily, into bed. She was the kind of child who smiled with her whole face and hugged with all her heart. Ethan had been working double shifts to pay for her asthma medication. He had lost his wife 3 years earlier in a car accident, and since then, Lily was the only light in his world. He kissed her forehead gently and whispered, "Good night, sunshine. I'll bring you pancakes in the morning." She giggled softly, "You promise, Daddy?" "With all my heart," he said. That night, a storm rolled through the city. Lightning danced over the skyscrapers, and thunder rumbled like distant drums. Ethan's phone buzzed with a new delivery request, urgent medical supplies to be delivered to the Gray mansion. The pay was good, more than any other job that week. He grabbed his keys and jacket, kissed Lily's cheek again, and slipped into the rain-soaked night. By the time he reached the mansion gates, it was nearly midnight. The guards scanned his ID and waved him through. He could see the mansion glowing faintly through the rain, towering and beautiful, but strangely lifeless. As he stepped inside, the echo of his boots against the marble floor made him feel out of place, a simple man in a world built of gold. A nurse led him down a long hallway toward the private medical suite. The air smelled of antiseptic and sadness. When Ethan entered the room, he froze. The boy lay motionless on a white bed surrounded by machines, tubes, and blinking lights. His skin was pale, his lips colorless. Leonard Gray stood near the window, speaking softly to a doctor who shook his head. "I'm sorry, Mr. Gray," the doctor said quietly. "We've tried every therapy, every specialist. There's nothing more we can do. You should prepare yourself." Leonard didn't respond. He just nodded slowly, staring at his son as if trying to memorize every detail before he was gone. The doctor left, and Ethan stood awkwardly by the door, holding the package of supplies. "Sir," he said gently, "I have a delivery for the medical team." Leonard turned, his eyes hollow. "Just put it there," he said, motioning to the table. But then he paused, staring at Ethan. Something about the man's tired eyes and damp clothes made him curious. "You look like you've been working all night." Ethan nodded. "Just doing what I can, sir. Got a little girl waiting for me at home." Leonard gave a weak smile. "You're lucky. Hold on to her while you can." For a moment, silence filled the room, broken only by the steady beep of the heart monitor. Then, a faint sound emerged, a cough. Both men froze. The boy's chest moved slightly, a shallow breath followed by a small wheeze. Ethan instinctively stepped closer. "Does he always breathe like that?" he asked. Leonard shook his head. "No, he hasn't moved in days." Ethan set down the package and leaned closer, his instincts from years of caring for his sick daughter kicking in. He noticed the boy's lips trembling and his skin cold. "He's freezing," Ethan murmured. "May I?" Leonard hesitated but nodded. Ethan removed his jacket and gently placed it over the boy. Then, without thinking, he rubbed the boy's small hands between his palms, trying to bring warmth back. "Come on, little man," he whispered, "you're stronger than this. Don't let go." Leonard watched silently, his throat tightening. No doctor had ever spoken to his son like that. They had used medical terms and machines, but never words that sounded like love. Ethan continued softly, telling little stories about his daughter, about pancakes and playgrounds, about laughter. His voice carried something the machines could not, a heartbeat. Minutes passed, and something incredible happened. The boy's breathing began to steady. His eyelids fluttered once, then again. Leonard's heart pounded. "Samuel," he whispered. The boy's lips parted, and a weak voice emerged. "Dad." Leonard stumbled backward, tears flooding his eyes. "Sammy. Oh my God. Sammy." He rushed to the bedside, gripping his son's hand as the machines started beeping faster, this time with life. Nurses ran in, shocked at the sudden signs of recovery. Ethan stepped back, overwhelmed by the moment. "What did you do?" Leonard gasped. "I don't know," Ethan said softly. Maybe he just needed someone to talk to him like a kid, not a patient. Over the next hours, Samuel's condition improved rapidly. The doctors were speechless. Scans showed no sign of the neurological damage they'd once feared irreversible. It was as if the boy's body had suddenly remembered how to live. When asked what triggered it, Leonard could only shake his head and point toward Ethan. "That man," he said. "He brought my son back." The story spread like wildfire. News channels called it a miracle. The world wanted to know how a delivery driver had done what 1,000 doctors couldn't. But Ethan didn't want fame. He just wanted to go home to Lily. The next morning, as he was getting ready for work, there was a knock on his door. Leonard Gray stood there, dressed simply, holding a small gift bag. "I came to thank you," he said. "You saved my son." Ethan smiled humbly. "I didn't do much, sir. Maybe he just needed kindness." Leonard nodded. "You gave him hope. That's something money can't buy." He handed Ethan an envelope. "Please accept this, it's a small token." Ethan opened it and froze. Inside was a check for $1 million. "Sir, I can't take this," Ethan said, stepping back. "I was just doing what anyone would have done." Leonard smiled faintly. "No, Mr. Blake, no one else did. And besides, it's not charity, it's gratitude. You reminded me of something I forgot long ago. That healing doesn't always come from medicine, it comes from the heart." Ethan hesitated, then shook his head. "Keep it, sir. But if you really want to thank me, help someone who needs it more." Leonard stared at him, speechless. A billionaire had met hundreds of people in his life, investors, politicians, scientists, but none had humbled him like this man who delivered packages in the rain. 2 weeks later, the world was stunned again, not by another medical miracle, but by Leonard Gray's sudden announcement. He sold one of his companies and launched a foundation called the Lily Project, dedicated to providing free medical care for children from low-income families. The name, Leonard explained, was in honor of the little girl who inspired the man who saved his son. When reporters asked why he chose that name, he smiled. "Because a single act of love from a father can change the world." Ethan returned to his simple life, still delivering packages, still raising Lily with all the love in his heart. But something inside him had changed. One afternoon, he received an invitation to the grand opening of the Lily Project's first clinic. He almost didn't go, he didn't like attention, but Lily insisted. "Daddy, we should see the kids you helped," she said. When they arrived, the clinic was full of laughter. Walls painted with bright murals, doctors volunteering their time, children running freely. Leonard greeted him warmly and knelt beside Lily. "You're the real reason this all happened," he said gently. "Your daddy taught me what love looks like." Lily smiled shyly. "Daddy says love is like breathing. You don't think about it, you just do it." Leonard's eyes glistened. He's a wise man. Months turned into years. Samuel fully recovered, growing into a healthy, happy boy. He and Lily became close friends, often playing together at the clinic when their fathers met to talk about new ways to help others. The world eventually forgot the headlines, but the lives that changed because of that one night never did. One evening, years later, Ethan sat by the window of his modest home, watching Lily study for school. She was 12 now, determined to become a doctor, not the kind that treats diseases, she once said, but the kind that heals hearts. Leonard visited often, but always humbly. Despite his wealth, he never tried to repay Ethan with money again. Instead, they became brothers in spirit, one who had everything and learned to give, and one who had little but showed the world what true wealth looked like. When Lily eventually graduated from medical school, Leonard and Samuel attended the ceremony. The proud father watched as his daughter walked across the stage, her eyes shining with the same kindness that had once saved another child's life. Afterward, as they stood outside under the same kind of stormy sky that had brought their destinies together, Samuel turned to Ethan. "Mr. Blake," he said softly, "I don't remember much from that night, but I remember your voice. You told me stories about pancakes and playgrounds. I think that's when I decided to come back. Ethan smiled, tears filling his eyes. You didn't come back for me, kid. You came back for the people who love you. Samuel shook his head. No, I came back because someone reminded me what love sounds like. The rain began to fall gently, washing the streets in silver light. Ethan looked up at the sky, feeling a peace he hadn't known in years. His wife's memory, his struggles, his sleepless nights, all of it suddenly made sense. Every small act of kindness he had given the world had found its way back to him, multiplied beyond measure. And as the rain fell, he realized that healing doesn't always come from medicine, or money, or miracles. Sometimes, it comes from a tired man who works through the night just to make sure someone else doesn't lose hope. Because sometimes, the greatest cure in the world is simply love. And in that truth, simple, eternal, and unstoppable, the world found its miracle.